Hey, sixth grade math teachers, welcome back to another Prep Talk video where we get you prepared for your PLCs the week of September 26th as you prepare to teach the content for the week of October 3rd. As always for these videos, we want to give you the tools necessary to become a contributing member to your PLC so that you can have rich discussions with your colleagues about how you will deliver this content in a meaningful and exceptional way to your students the week of October 3rd. As we take a look at the weekly overview, you'll notice that we have 3 days that are blocked off for either finishing up your discussion on fractions, decimals, and percents on the flex day, and then 2 days to account for district checkpoint testing. Once we finish that up, we're ready to move into a new unit where we start talking about ratios and rates. We'll talk the first day about TEK 6.4D, where we will introduce rates as the division of two quantities, and those quantities have different attributes. So for example, think miles per hour or dollars per day, something along those lines in a real world context. For 6.4D, you'll notice that the frequency is very low. It has only been tested one time in 5 years. So we're not going to define our win for the week on 6.4D. Instead, we're going to define the win with 6.4B because that TEK has been tested 9 times in the last 5 years as a readiness standard. We will begin talking about this TEK only by looking at the comparison of rates in real-world problems to do some qualitative and quantitative reasoning. Let's look at this released question for TEK 6.4D. A baseball traveled 330 feet in 5 seconds. Which rate is equivalent to the rate at which the baseball traveled? The first thing that I notice about the answer choices is that they are all whole numbers that are larger than 1. This is important because it helps me understand that in order to get the equivalent rate, I'm going to have to divide the bigger number, 330, by the smaller number, 5. I will begin by writing that down in fraction form, 330 divided by 5. Now, as you'll notice from the answer choices, this is not the ideal way that we want students writing down their work. Because as you'll notice, there are 2 answer choices that have 55 as their answer and 2 answer choices that have 66 as their answer. The difference is in the units on the rate that we are looking for. And so what we want to make sure that students are doing every single time is not just writing 330, but writing 330 feet. Then not only writing down 5, but also writing down 5 seconds. And that is going to really help students to understand that this rate will be measured in the unit feet per second. And so if they can do that, they should be able to then eliminate 2 wrong answers immediately. Then in order to get the correct answer, we would actually have to do the division here of 5 into 330. 5 goes into 33 6 times with a remainder of 3, and 5 goes into 30 6 times so that we get 66 feet per second in order to get our answer. Again, it is so important that students are writing down the unit that is associated with the number that they are actually computing. This is another released question on TEK 6.4D. I'd like for you to pause the video and read this problem to yourself and then solve it and see if you can come up with any observations as you work through the problem. As you take a look at the solution here, hopefully again you notice that all 4 of the answer choices are whole numbers bigger than 1, which tells you that you need to divide the bigger number by the smaller number. By doing that and having students write down the units, they should be able to eliminate 2 wrong answers. Residents per square mile is what this rate will be measured in, and so therefore A and D are both automatically eliminated. From there, they should know that 9350 divided by 425 is not going to be 9350. We hope that our students would have number sense to that level to understand that 9350 divided by 425 is going to be a number less than 9350, and so that would obviously leave us with C as the correct answer. As we take a look at our first released question for 6.4b, we're going to notice that there's a lot of things to take into account for this particular skill. First of all, I want to point out that in the scope and sequence, we're beginning with comparison problems, not prediction problems. So this will just be the comparison of two rates to see who has more or who did it faster or something along those lines in a real-world context. As we look at this question, notice several things. First of all, students need to realize that rates can be written as ratios. You'll see that in answer choice A and answer choice D. So not only do you have to have them writing it like we did for the previous TEK, where they write it as a fraction, but you should also have students engaging with rates as a ratio. 5 to 1, 8 to 2, things of that nature. The other thing that you'll want to notice as you read this question is that sometimes the denominator, if you will, is not explicitly given, and students will need to know that it is an understood one. Take, for example, the sentence here. Megan mixed 5 milliliters of a chemical solution with every gallon of water for her aquarium. It doesn't say it here, but because there's not a number there, we understand that it is a 1. There are 5 mils for every 1 gallon of water for her aquarium. And so therefore I would look at Megan and I would write a ratio of 5 to 1 for Megan. Then for Desmond, we have a ratio, as we are told in the problem, of 8 to 2. So a ratio of 8 to 2, which would obviously mean from there, if I do some reducing, that is 4 to 1. So there are 4 milliliters of chemical solution for every 1 gallon of water. And that's what you want students doing. You want them always taking it back, if possible, to a denominator of 1, so that they are comparing ratios that have the same denominator. What I notice whenever those are reduced is that it is actually Megan who uses more solution per gallon of water, and it's because her ratio of 5 to 1 is greater than the ratio for Desmond, which was 8 to 2. The big misconception here is that students do not even consider that they are looking at a rate or a ratio. All they do is they look at the 5 and the 8, and they assumed that Desmond used more solution, either because 8 is bigger than 5 or because they didn't reduce and they said that 8 to 2 was greater than 5 to 1. You'll want to make sure to address both of those misconceptions when you are teaching the lesson. I want you to pause the video now and work out this released question on your own. As you're working it out, think like a student and see if you can figure out where a student might mess up or what misconception he or she might fall into as they are working this problem that would cause them to get the question wrong. These are the things that we want to talk about in our PLC and discuss as a team how we will address these in our lesson. So go ahead, pause the video, and give this one a shot. Hopefully you recognized as you were working out this problem that it would have been very easy for a student to determine that Taylor earns more per hour than Ramey because all they looked at was the total amount earned. Taylor earns $308, Ramey earns $288. 308 is bigger than 288, so Taylor must earn more per hour. But that does not take into account the number of hours that each of them worked. And so students need to focus on understanding how to solve problems involving rates because the number of hours they worked is just as important as the total amount of money that they earned. So again, having students set up the division of the two quantities, do the actual computation, and then come out with a final result for Taylor of $22 per hour, doing the same thing for Ramey, getting $24 per hour, and then recognizing that 24 is greater than 22 for an answer of G. Thank you so much for watching this video on 6th grade math for the content you'll teach the week of October 3rd. If you have any questions about anything that was discussed in this video or any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to us on our office hours, Tuesday, September 27th from 4 to 4:30. And as always, before you go, please fill out our survey using the QR code to the left or the link provided on this slide. That will let us know that you watched the video, and it will also help us to serve you better in future videos. Thank you so much for watching. We hope that this was an informative time and that you feel confident now to walk into your PLC and contribute to the conversation in a meaningful way. Take care, guys.